Right. Well, welcome everyone to Home Office Hours Live with Vistaprint. Thank you so much for joining us today. If this is your first time joining us, Home Office Hours is a series of live discussions that we've put together on timely topics, and we'll be featuring guest speakers as well as our very own Vistaprint team members. We know that small business needs have changed during this time, and we wanted to help. So we put together this series as a way for us to connect and share advice during this time when we're all spending a lot of time working from our homes and we're dealing with various challenges. So we've tapped colleagues to help answer some of the questions that you're all having as business owners. And today we've got with us Robin Van Cura, our social media content and PR lead here at Vistaprint. Robin, can you give us a hello?
Hi there.
Hey, Robin.
Glad to be here.
Yes. Awesome. And we also have returning guest Ali Karsh, who is the founder of Little Voices PR, a PR influencer marketing and events agency. Ali, can you say hello?
Good morning.
Hey, Ali. Thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
So as the US starts to open back up to some extent, we're here to talk about communicating your reopening plan to your customers. Before we jump into it, just a couple of housekeeping items. We'll take Q&A at the end, but feel free to submit those questions all throughout this session. If you're joining us in Zoom, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We know that a lot of you are also joining us via Facebook Live. So if you are on Facebook and you've got questions, you can just add those in the comments and we'll receive those in the Q&A in Zoom as well. And then finally, if you signed up via Zoom, you'll get a copy of the recording via email. If you're watching us on Facebook, you can always find a copy of the recording on our YouTube channel as well. We've got a whole playlist with all of these. All right, so with that, let's jump into the conversation. So, we know that businesses in various areas are starting to reopen and they've got all different regulations, different timing, et cetera. But across the board, really, no matter what business you are, what do you need to let customers know now? Robin, can you start us off there?
Sure. So you need to let them know, first and foremost, that you're open again, and you need to let them know about some of the different things you'll be doing to create that new norm for your business going forward. So the safety precautions that you might have in place, the way that you're going to be providing a safe environment for your employees, all of those things that will make people feel more comfortable to come back to your location or your business in the future. I think those are probably the biggest things, Corey, overall, is just to open up the communications to let people know that you're open and that you're doing all the right things to make sure it's a safe place to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Ali, anything to add there?
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. I think the only other thing is just a way to contact you. I think there's a lot of questions and unknowns, and people might be a little timid to come in. So just whether it's an email address or a phone number, just make sure that that's available so that they can contact you and get answers so they feel more comfortable.
Yes, I definitely agree. That's important. I'm sure people have a lot of questions right now. So what methods should we be using to get that information out to customers? There's a lot of different methods out there that are available to us. Robin, what do you think?
Oh gosh, you should be using just about every form of communication you can think of. So over the past few months, you've probably been doing a great job of maybe building up your social media presence or emailing customers and letting them know where things are with your business. You should leverage those channels. You should also leverage your website. You should leverage printed materials. If you have a storefront, you should put signs in your windows and tea-based signs outside. You might want to send postcards if you want to do a more paid media approach to let people know about your business. I've even seen people do great things with door hangers to let them know, for example, that their cleaning service is now open again, or their nail salon, things like that, where you might have a little bit more room to tell a little bit more of your story about opening and a little bit more about your business as well. So truly, you have so many great marketing communication tools in your hands. Some of them will require paid, some of them are organic or free, and you should try and leverage them all the best possible way you can.
Yeah, I completely agree, Robin. I think I'm in Dallas, and so we're pretty far along in our reopening, and I think some of the signage that I've seen has been really fun. I think there's been a lot of great signage in terms of people putting, we appreciate our frontline workers, or positive sentiment out there, and I think that's been really nice to see. Also, just communicating face mask required, or whatever your terms for entry are. I think that's really important, and I think it helps people feel comfortable when they see what those updated, things are that you need to do upon approaching. So.
Yeah, Allie, that's so important. I think from a messaging standpoint, we might get into this a little bit later on, but it's really finding that approachable way to speak to your customers. I think in general, you definitely want to tell your story and tell people how you're doing things to make it safer, but you don't want to get so detailed that it's almost confusing for them to figure out what they're supposed to do when they get there. So finding that nice balance is super important. And I think we're all celebrating the fact that business is opening the best way it can. And so it should be more in that tone.
Yes, totally agree. And, let's dive a little bit deeper into this. Businesses are going to have a lot of changes. Allie, you referenced terms of entry. Robin, you're talking about how you don't make that too confusing and make it clear, but how can businesses and owners help customers understand exactly what to expect now?
I think, it's a lot about just communicating, which is the overarching theme of this. But, I've really appreciated getting email updates from a lot of the business partners that I want to visit, and just understanding what their terms are. What is the safety measures you're taking? What is expected of me when I come in? How is your staff going to be taking precautions? All of the above, just really communicating and explaining your process, and really leaving no questions unanswered, so that people feel comfortable taking the next step. And I think that's been the best way I've seen so far.
Yeah, that's great. And I would also say that one of the things that has transpired, or that we've seen happen for a lot of businesses, is that they have built a camaraderie with their customers in a way they didn't have before. And so now is a great time to keep that relationship going, and to leverage your customers for insights on things they'd like to see, or how things could be done differently, or communicating to them about the things you're doing in a way that they kind of know your story at this point. They know your business, and they know what you've gone through in the last couple months. So just bringing them along that journey. I've seen a couple great examples of this. One most recently with Sumerian Brewing Company. They did a really nice job. They shared their extensive, measures that they're taking to open up their business. I've seen some others for restaurants that have been talking about the outdoor seating and their plans of how they're going to do that. And then most recently, I also saw a really nice dance studio that Neshoba Valley Movement, that did a nice job of communicating their plan. But then they also, instead of opening up on day one, they opened up more on a slow cycle, and communicated with their customers every step of that way, actually asking them, would you like to join me? This is what I'm looking to do at my dance studio. I would like some of my best customers to come and experience this with me, and make sure I'm doing it right before I open it up to everyone else. And those communication moments, I will tell you personally, I feel invested in that small business now. I feel like I am a part of their process for reopening. I'm totally invested in their success, and bringing me along for the ride has actually been really nice.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Allie, can you expand on, is it a good idea? How does it help to ask your customers for feedback on these new processes and new setups and reopening?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the main thing to keep in mind is that we're navigating this the first time, all of us, the whole world. And so there's going to be missteps, there's going to be confusion, there's going to be maybe you make a decision and you change it because you don't feel like that's the right approach. And I think just being humble and honest and open about what you're going through as a business owner and what the steps are you're going to take. I think your customers will really value that and see that you're doing the best you can do. But I think just communicating and being honest is really important during this time, and asking for feedback and bringing them along the journey with you, so that, if somebody has a better idea, they can share it with you, and it's not going to be turned down, that we're all in this together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that transparency and two-way communication has become really important. Robin, did you have something to add there?
Yeah, sorry, Corey, I didn't mean to speak over you.
Okay.
I love the idea of asking for that feedback and being open to it. There are going to be things that you're going to do that 2 weeks from now, you're going to say, oh, I wish I had only known. Because as Allie was just describing, we're forging this path and navigating through this for the first time, all of us. And customers might have some recommendations, or they might even be irritated because you're doing something that they wish you'd do differently. For example, you hand them a pen when they go to sign for their receipt, and you find out that people are very upset that you're handing out pens that haven't been cleaned, or that you're not doing touchless transactions or things like that. That kind of feedback could make your process even better later on, and you can figure out ways to always enhance what you're doing. So I don't think anyone needs to be 100% at the beginning. They just have to do the best they can to follow as many guidelines to be as safe as possible.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I think you're right. A lot of that feedback along the way is going to be some ways that you can do some things better. And anytime that you ask for feedback, and especially now with so many changes, you're definitely going to get some customers who just aren't happy with the changes. Allie, is there anything you can share with us? Any recommendations on how you can handle that negative feedback? Of course, hopefully much of it will be constructive on ways that you can do better, but I think we can expect some negativity as well. Any tips there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to receive it and say thank you for sharing. We're sorry you're upset. Here's what we're doing and why we're doing it, and we'll keep your opinion in mind. I think you just have to acknowledge that people are going to have different opinions and maybe not the same as yours. One thing that I think would be helpful too is putting together answers and questions on your site. So anything that you can direct back to say, here's our protocol, here's why we're doing what we're doing. We encourage you to keep checking back in case anything changes, but this is kind of where we're at right now, and just being kind and acknowledging their feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important, just the simple act of letting them know that they've been heard, I think does go a long way as well.
Yeah.
The FAQ section, or question and answer, as you're describing on the site, is such an important step, because it does answer most of the core questions, but it also allows you to pull the conversation away necessarily from social media or places where it could kind of bubble up and become something bigger online. You have that FAQ page, and I think Allie mentioned it earlier. You also have a contact for them to email for further questions that can't be answered on that page, because you certainly want to have that one-to-one opportunity to answer any questions that people have. But sometimes when it comes through on social media and you start the conversation there, it's really hard to react fast enough to how quickly that conversation could escalate. So bringing it offline is a really great tactic for any business.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. Thank you for sharing that. So we've talked about a lot of different communications that you're going to need to be putting out there, and a lot of different methods, a lot of different vehicles that you're going to be communicating in. But Robin, can you talk to us a little bit more about the tone and the language that you should be using in these communications?
Sure. I think Allie touched on it a little bit, and I'll just expand upon it because I'm fully in agreement with her. But it's really about creating a friendly tone. It is about creating an environment where you're human. You're talking about your next steps, and you're clear. I think it's about creating messages that are celebrating the fact that you're now open, and providing clear next steps on how they can interact with you going forward. And trying not to, I think I might have mentioned, so trying not to scare people away. I have seen some places where people have gone into such minute detail on certain channels about everything people need to do, that you start to get a little anxious that you're going to miss a step, or you're not really sure what you're supposed to do. So I think take every vehicle for what it's meant for. Your website, go into a lot of detail. For something like a social post, don't be quite as detailed. A sign in your window, if you need people to wear masks, that's about all you can say on a sign. You can't go into all the steps or all the things you've done. It's really about taking each one of those vehicles and figuring out exactly the amount of information people can absorb at that time and putting it in a friendly and celebratory tone to let them know that you're excited to have them back in your store or shopping with you online.
Absolutely. And I know you actually shared with us an awesome article that had some examples of good signage, bad signage. We'll include that in the email to our registrants when we follow up. I think that that included some really great illustrations of your point. So Allie, we know that there's a lot of other current events going on right now. Unfortunately, COVID-19 is not the only thing that business owners and everybody is dealing with. Anything that you can add to us on that topic?
Yeah. So the majority of the brands that we work with are online. So we've been working with a lot of our brands just kind of over the past 3 months, honestly, as everything's transpired, to really delve a little bit deeper into what their brand ethos is and what they are, kind of what they stand for, who they are. I think everyone is anxious to kind of peel back the layers and understand the brands that they support a little bit better. So we've been working with our brands to talk about what is that ethos that inspires you to work each day? What is your diversity policy? How do you run your business in a positive manner that you can be proud of and you can be proud to be a customer of? So I think it's a great time with everything going on just to really revisit that conversation internally and try to figure out what you want to communicate with your customers. I think people are very anxious to learn that. So it's a good time to really revisit and try to communicate that. And I think using your website is best for that. It could be something you post on social, or you could redirect people from social over to your website. But I think any way in which you feel best communicates with your customer base, you should use.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice. Thank you. So we try to keep about the last 10 minutes here for our audience questions and then some final closing thoughts from our panelists. So I'm going to turn it over here now to Q&A. So just a reminder, if you're on Zoom, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And if you're joining us on Facebook, just add your question right in the comments and we'll get those in the Q&A. So I see we have a couple already, so I'll get us started off with these. Right, so Allie, would love if you can take this first one. How can I change my communication between customers who have continued their business with me throughout the closing versus people who are coming back totally new?
Yeah, no, this is a great one. And I think I've actually received some of these emails as supporting small businesses has been really, a fun thing to do during this time. I think there's just loyalty in the customers that have stood with you. And so I think reaching out to them, offering them, small tidbits, whether it's a discount code or the opportunity to access a sale earlier than someone else, just kind of sharing with them that you care and you appreciate their support, you see them, they're heard. And then for customers that maybe didn't spend with you recently, but maybe will be coming back in the future, just reaching back out and touching base with them, seeing how they're doing. Is there anything they're looking for to see from you? And just kind of revisiting that initial conversation. But I think you have to be mindful in how you communicate with people and not just blanketly speak to everyone the same, because it is a really important time to bring that customership back to you as a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. Robin, anything to add there?
Yeah, a couple things. I agree, Allie, that a couple things to add is if you have certain customers who are very loyal to you, you might think of those high touch points and you might even call them. So I've had my hairdresser, for example, has called me directly and said, we're now open, we're doing some new things, would you like to make an appointment? There have been others that I'm not quite as loyal to that have been sending things like emails with offers to have me come back again. Things that just to kind of get that business back into my repertoire of businesses that I work with more often. So there's offers, there's things like that that you can do. I think when you have customers that know you really well, you might be able to have, as I mentioned earlier, a little bit more of a unique conversation with them about your business. Those are the ones you're probably going to for a little bit of advice, those top those top customers. And then on the other side, you have others that it's more of a more mass communication.
Yeah, I think those are great points. And it kind of brings it back to a point, Allie, you said earlier that the customers who have stuck with you during this, it's been an opportunity to really connect with them even closer than before. So those customers who have continued your business, you probably have an even tighter relationship and more loyalty there right now.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so our next question here, we get this a lot. I imagine a lot of businesses who have physical products are experiencing this question right now. Robin, it would be great if you could start us with this one. So should I be communicating cleaning and sanitization steps we're taking on the products themselves?
Yeah, it's interesting. We get a lot of product requests for things like this. Anything that is going to make your customers feel more comfortable that you are taking steps to ensure their safety, it is a good thing. There are some people that will include with their online orders a little card or stickers that say this was, this product was sanitized or what have you. It always just adds that little extra touch to show people that you're truly taking this seriously, and I think it's overall well received.
Definitely. Allie, anything to add there?
No, I mean, I think over communicating is the name of the game right now. So whatever you can do to make people feel comfortable, do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
I'd also mention, Corey, in addition to telling people that things are sanitized with stickers or with cards or whatever, this is also a nice time to say thank you to those customers that have come back, and to appreciate those that have stayed with you during the course of the pandemic, which we are still, we're still only in phases of this. Like, you want to thank them for their patronage. And so here's a nice time to maybe do a handwritten note or a little card or something to just give that personal touch. All of that just shows that you're a small business trying to forge your way through all of this. And I think you'll find that people are really supportive of your success.
No, I totally agree, Robin. You just reminded me of one of my favorite things that's happened during quarantine. We ate out, or we did curbside a lot, where we would pick up from our favorite restaurants, and we were a regular at one restaurant pretty frequently. And one day they sent a card out, and everyone in the entire restaurant had signed it, and they were just like, thank you for coming back each week. And just getting that and seeing each person like a different signature just made a big difference, and it makes you feel like, okay, there's real people behind all of this. And that was just a great touch point that made me continue to keep coming back and seeing how we can help them. So I agree.
Yeah, you're invested in their success. Small businesses should leverage that as much as they can. That's a great example.
Yeah, I love that example. And it really shows kind of the humans who are behind every small business. It's a great way to demonstrate that and to show your appreciation for the customers. Right, so we do have one more question here. So just a shout out, if you've got any questions, use the Q&A button if you're in Zoom. And if you're in Facebook, just add those in the comments here. We'll take this question here, and then I'll go over to our panelists for their final thoughts to give everybody a couple of more questions, or a couple of more minutes to get their questions in if you do have anything else. So our question here, do you have any suggestions on how to respond to customers that are not following the new guidelines? Allie, can you kick us off with a response to that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I think unfortunately there's reasons that you're instilling certain levels of safety in your business, and if somebody chooses not to follow them, it could be detrimental for your business, for any other customers. And so I think it's just, you kind of just need to say, listen, if you choose not to follow our guidelines, unfortunately, we're going to have to not allow you back in until you're able to follow the guidelines. I mean, no one wants to have that conversation, but there's reasons for it. So I think you just have to be upfront and honest and handle it directly.
Yeah, it's a very tough situation. Robin, is there anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, it's a doozy of a question to end on. I think it's important to tread this one lightly. You need to figure out where your comfort level is. But understanding that if this one person is not wearing their mask or adhering to the guidelines and it's making others uncomfortable, then if you don't address it with that one, you're basically addressing it with all the others, that letting them know that you don't care as much. And so it's really kind of, you've got to think about, if you say nothing, if you're really saying something to others. So you have to figure out where your comfort level is in that. I will say there's also things that you need to talk to your employees about. So making sure that they're on the same page with you. I think we've all seen this, but there are lots of people that wear their masks under their nose, or they got them down here, and then when they go to the customer, they pull them up, but they've been working with food. You just need to make sure that you have very specific guidelines for your employees as well, and that they are an extension of you and your approach to reopening during this time period, so that you know that if anyone is associating with any of the employees in your group or at your company, that you know that they're emulating what you hope they will as well from a safety precautions standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about communicating with your customers. It's about communicating with your employees as well and presenting that united front, if you will.
Right. And I think for many, they also feel like some people want to know what you're doing for your employees, even to make them safe during these times as well. That is another thing that could show up on that FAQ page, for example, is talking about the safety of the employees and what you're doing to make their time with you as safe as possible.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely agree there. Right, so we do have just 2 more minutes here. So if anybody does have additional questions, go ahead and get those in. In the meantime, to give you just a minute to enter those in, I'm going to ask our panelists for their final thoughts here. We usually like to end these sessions by asking that question. So Robin, can you start us off here? If there's one key takeaway that you want people to walk away from this, what would that be?
Yeah, thanks. I did think about this ahead of time because I knew you were going to ask. I've done a couple of these webinars and I know how you operate, Corey. So I think it's really about taking the time to do it right. So mapping out your communication touch points and what you want to say, and then leveraging some of your best customers for advice, because a second set of eyes is always a good idea. So I think don't rush, do it right, take your time. Get all the right communications points in place, and I think you're going to be off to a great start.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Robin.
Sure.
And Allie, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what Robin said, and I think, and I kind of touched on this earlier, but I think it's just, there's no perfect way to navigate these times. We are all in this learning as we go. I think just being humble and honest and really transparent with your customers is the best way. And, I think there may be missteps, and that's okay, but use what you can. Use your social channels, make a phone call. If you offend somebody, apologize. Just being like a human is really important during these times, and not a regimented business. So I think that that's the best way, and I think it's going to speak volumes to your customers to see that side of you right now.
Completely agree. Thank you. All right, so we are actually at time. I think we have covered all the questions here, so we are going to wrap it up for today, but we're going to be hosting these every Tuesday, various relevant topics. We really want the audience's help for that, so there is a short survey at the end. Please take just a couple of minutes, fill it out, let us know how we can make these more valuable for you, what topics we can cover, and you can also always respond to us on social media as well and let us know what you'd like to hear. And we've also got an email inbox, homeofficehours@vistaprint.com. You can absolutely send suggestions, topics you'd like to hear, questions, send us anything there. So tune back in next Tuesday. We're going to be talking more about crafting the About section of your website. And in the meantime, you can also find more information by visiting Vistaprint.com. We've got a Support Small Business Hub, and we've actually got some back to business content right now as well that can help you out. So thank you, Robin. Thank you, Allie, for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Corey.
And thank you to our audience, as always, for taking the time as well. This has been Home Office Hours Live, and we hope to see you next Tuesday.